So I promised myself that this review was going to get done, and oh my goodness, I keep crying halfway through it. However, I have proven without a doubt that my eyeliner actually is waterproof this time, unlike the stuff I was using before. So that is good. So I apologize, there may be some cuts in this. This is my relaunching of Talk Story to Me, and the story that we're going to be discussing is Brandon Barr's Rise of the Seer, which it is the first book in the Song of the World series. Now, I've only read the first book in this, but I have read some other pieces by Brandon. He is a talented fantasy author. He does fantasy and fantasy sci-fi, or I think sci-fantasy is the other term for it. And it's just that fun merging of genres with, you know, good characters, great world building. He's quite good at taking classic elements to fantasy and sci-fi and building a world around it that makes sense. So, if I can get through this next part, Brandon is not only a talented author, but he is a very loving family man. He is a kind Christian and just a great person all around from everything I have seen. Now, I don't know him personally. I've only seen him in basically, you know, around the writing community or through other people and friends who I trust. So, but it's still, there is that part of me that feels sorrow for the family and for him, because unfortunately he has leukemia, and it is now in the final stages. And he is trying very hard to finish his stories, to complete the rebranding, and to have something for his family to, you know, to help provide for them. And, you know, I've mentioned this in my newsletter, and I'll be sending out more because, you know, the writing community, the fantasy community, particularly the indie community, has been rallying around to try to do everything they can to promote this series, to get targeted readers in there, people who will enjoy it and who will be able to find great stories and continue to help support him and his family. And these characters and these stories have some really great life to them, and they're going to keep going on and on. So, like I said, this is the part in the review where I consistently lose it, because even though the story, Rise of the Seer, has some very sad parts, it's all in all a really engaging story, and it's not nearly as tragic as some of the other stories that I've read. But I have to say I am biased on this, obviously. I mean, I think you can see why, but I think even without that, Brandon's work stands on its own. He's got a great voice, and one of my favorite things, I love this about authors who have a little bit of a history with them, you know, and you have their different stories that you can read, and you can see the way that they've grown and developed. And what I like in this series so far is that his voice, it's got a very strong, confident, but musical tone to it. And I can't quite put my finger on the exact right word, you know, and you'd think with all of these attempts at this review that I would have it down by now, but nope, sorry. When I think of it, I'll let you know. And I've only read the first book. I'm getting ready to read the Bridge Beyond the World, which I hear is where the science fiction aspect of the story is really going to kick in. Up until this point, we've only had little hints and suggestions of what's coming. And there is a portal referenced in there, and you know how I feel about portals. I love portals. Well, I have to say, this book is just really had my number right from the time that I started it, and I finished it in one sitting. I was in an airport, and I sat there and I read it, and that long layover was not nearly long enough. So, on to the review. It follows the journey of about 3 characters. There's Avon and his twin sister, Winter. Now, Winter is the seer, and she is she's a fascinating character. She's also probably, I would say, the most spiritually attuned character, and she is learning to embrace her gifts that the Maker has given her. And then, you know, Avon has been beaten down and broken through events that show up. And this is one of the things that I've noticed that Brandon does quite well, is he takes certain concepts and constructs that are really quite common within the fantasy or the science fiction genre, such as the all-powerful overlord who rules this fiefdom with an iron fist. Does a great job with then taking it and showing, why did this develop? How did this show up here? why are people not standing up to them? And they are, and it seems like it's not a new thing. The penalties are incredibly vicious, and of course in this case we're dealing with a baron who is every bit as evil as possible. And you know, there's the risk that this character is going to become two-dimensional. However, since we're only in the POV of these protagonists, I think, you know, I know we're only getting it from their perspective, and I'm curious to see what else is going to develop. Not necessarily with the Baron, but with some of the other villains. But they make excellent characters for them to go up against with this powerful authority and the risks. The stakes are quite high. And there is a lot of loss, especially in the beginning. And, you know, poor Avon, he's lost almost everything. And so for him, this is a story of how does a broken man learn how to fight again. And that's where I'm pretty sure his arc is going to go. And Winter is exploring these abilities that she has, because, you know, as a seer, what do you do with these visions that you get? What on earth are you supposed to do with them? And how do you know if you cause them or your inaction causes them? It really gets into some of the complexities of that. And I don't think this is a spoiler, because I really don't want to give any spoilers, but she has a little butterfly that accompanies her everywhere. And I love the symbolism of that butterfly, and I love how the butterfly just shows up, and it's this nice little touch. And plus, I'm imagining when, you know, if you do illustrations and such, beautiful little splash of color right there. Absolutely perfect. Then the other half of the story is following Melissia. Now, I will apologize. I hope I'm pronouncing the names correctly, but, you know, I'm really great at faking knowing how to pronounce names, so I'm going to say it with confidence. Anyway, Melissia is the daughter of a leader, and I hope I'm pronouncing this one correctly too, the Luminaire, that she's going to become a leader is what she wants to do. But of course there are problems. And it was interesting the way that they tackle this concept of a woman leader. In particular, the concept of her becoming a mother and the consequences of that. Now, Melissia is probably one of the most complex of the protagonists in this story, because she has some habits that are, well, a little bit, shall we say, no, honey, you should not be doing that. You should not be spying on the servants when they're having their intimate time. That's just not to be done. However, I did buy that she did that, and I still liked her character. It's obvious that all three of these protagonists, though being very different individuals, really care about, well, Avon cares about his sister and about finding a way to live within this world. Winter cares about her brother, but also the community as a whole, and she wants to find a way to help everyone to live, and she's also cares about this spiritual aspect. And then as far as Melissia, there is this whole issue with the kingdom and the battles that are going on. And, you know, these two worlds seem very disparate, but at the same time, the stories flow very nicely. They haven't completely joined up yet, but I know that's coming. And there was this nice give and take between the journeys. And of course, Melissia is going through betrayals of her own, things that she doesn't even know are coming. And yeah, I have some hopeful predictions about what's coming up this way. But it was just a great read. It's quite immersive. The world feels like a real world. It's also familiar enough that even if, you know, let's say, you know, you don't enjoy high fantasy because, oh my goodness, I have to learn so many things. This uses a lot of pieces that you're going to recognize, and it's familiar. It does a good job of being original and creative within a familiar framework. And, you know, he doesn't overdo a lot of fictional languages, you know, which is, I love a good fictional language. I like writing them myself, but they can be challenging. And so this was a very easy story to get into and to just read straight through. And I really wanted to go and start the second book, but I had to deal with myself that I had to get this review done first, and I had to get other things accomplished. So it has been well worth it to wait for that reward. I definitely recommend it. The subject matter, I suppose I should mention, there is some sexual content that does take place. It's not salacious. It's just, and it does advance the plot, what is present. The thing that I really enjoyed in this was that flow and that music in the narration. And there's a lot of subtext, what's going on here, and you can see Brandon's faith woven in, but not in a really pushy or obvious way. It's just I can pick up on some of the elements, like, yep, I think I know where that's coming from, and I think I know where that's coming from. And yeah, just a great first book. definitely recommend it. Please pick it up, and please continue to spread the word about this to support Brandon's books and his family. This is probably one of my most choppy reviews, and I apologize for that, but I want to get the word out about this and to encourage you to support Brandon. And even though I can't do it perfectly, please pick up his stories, support him and his family, and I'll keep you guys posted as there are more things that you can do. So with that said, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.